true you like Tombs of the Blind Dead?
Especially the flashback scene, when the Knights Templars sacrifice the Virgin and they drink her blood.
I love horror movies, and I love genre, and no genre breaks down into neat little subdivisions of styles and eras and subject matter the way horror does. These subgenres could be by monster, like Dracula, Frankenstein, Mummy, or zombies. Zombie could be divided into the slow walkers and the fast runners, or you could separate your Italian zombie movies from your American zombies, which is more of a stylistic separation. In this series, we look at microgenres. I'm trying to cover an entire subgenre within one video, and if we were just to look at Italian zombie movies, I'd be here for hours. But if we jump over some water to the west, we would land in Spain. Now, I don't think we hear enough about movies from Spain, let alone Spanish horror movies, and we are going to niche down pretty hard here. Not just horror, and not just zombies. Today, our microgenre movies are the Spanish undead Templar Knights movies, commonly known as the Tombs of the Blind Dead. It's really great. It's like this woman on the cover looks like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Be scared, Marge. Be scared. Okay, so what are we talking about? In the 70s, in Spain, this guy Armando de Osorio made 4 films that all featured undead Knights Templar as the baddie. Now, that's not technically a microgenre to have a guy make 4 films that are connected, but then a few other filmmakers throw their hats in the ring and made other Templar Knight zombie films, and here we are. So the first thing to cover is why the Templars, and what was that all about? Well, very quickly. During the Crusades, the church was waging holy wars to reclaim the Middle East for Christians. They don't do that anymore, right? The Knights Templar were these badass fighters who would escort and protect pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land. They amassed wealth and were a powerful order until the 1300s, when the King of France, King Philip, decided it was easier to have them all killed than it was to pay his debts. It was a real Order 66 situation. They captured them and tortured them, burned them alive, betraying them despite their service. And this dramatic ending to such a prestigious order is part of why they are evoked in pop culture today, I think. There's some sense of wonder as to what happened to their treasure, like in National Treasure, or in the case of the Blind Dead movies, maybe they have a gripe or two and want to do some murders to get their rocks off. In the 4 prime Blind Dead movies, the Templars are explained as devil worshippers who betrayed their faith. But history seems to consider these fabricated stories by King Philip because he owed them money, and that might make them sympathetic figures, since being burned at the stake or having your eyes gouged out to get you to confess is horrible, and nobody deserves that. But on the other hand, they were only actually heroes if you were Christian, right? Like, they were quite literally holy terrors to Muslims and others. So that's a bit of nuanced history, but for our purposes in this video, we only need to consider the lore each movie gives us.
These are the tombs of the Templars, an ancient order that worshipped the devil in the year 1250 AD.
I remember that the Templars were excommunicated because of their changing to worship the devil.
In the 12th century, the Templars fought in the Crusades. They brought back great treasures from the East with them. Oh, yes, and they also came back worshipping black magic.
The Templars brought back the secret of eternal life from the Orient. When the villagers learned of their human sacrifices to the devil, they burned out their eyes so they could never find their way back.
He really is mad.
The Templars took over by force, and their blood rituals sacrificed every virgin girl in the village. They continued to ravage the countryside until the King of Spain conquered them and brought them to trial. They were hung and left for all to witness that witchcraft was forbidden. The crows ate the eyes out of the cadavers.
According to the legend, the villagers burned the Templars' eyes out so they couldn't find their way back to take revenge. Superstition says they follow sound.
I was told that they come from France, pursued by their vices and malediction. Every 7 years they toll their bells. And 7 girls have to be sacrificed on 7 consecutive nights.
All right, 1972, Tombs of the Blind Dead, a.k.a. The Blind Dead, a.k.a. Revenge from Planet Ape, a.k.a. La Noche del Terror Ciego, a.k.a. Night of the Blind Terror, a.k.a. Mark of the Devil, Part 4. Directed by Armando de Osorio. Okay, so the first film sets the tone and formula, and I think it's also the best. Our main heroine, Virginia, is on vacation with her boyfriend when she runs into an old girlfriend from school. There's some tension there from a past sexual incident between them. They're on a train going cross country in Spain, and she gets uncomfortable with how her friend is flirting with her boyfriend, and so she jumps off the train with her bag and hikes into old abandoned ruins of a city. And this is where the Templars reside and come from their graves to kill her. Now, her boyfriend and her friend are learning about the cursed old city ruins, and they go looking for her, and more people get killed, and so it goes. The knights themselves are so grungy and crusty, and they're the entire special effects department, and they're especially effective. Like, sure, they're slow-mode and mainly atmospheric in their dread, the icons of the genre, but the movie opens with a human sacrifice to really sell the graphic violence, even though the majority of the gore is insinuated. So there are some great zombie-type attack scenes throughout.
You want to play?
And I think that's the draw. This creepy atmosphere that the Knights give off, the original premise, and then the cast of characters. More than most B-movies, there's real care in building a past relationship between the two female leads. They've had some past sexual experience together in college, and that's what motivates her to leave the train, and it further motivates her friend to find her. It's refreshing to feel like your horror characters really do have a life beyond the film. Oh, and the sound design. So these Blind Dead movies tend to have these fingernail scraping, piercing cries and aggravating dissonant soundscapes with tons of echo and reverb on it. Now, I know that sounds awful, but it reminds me of the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, which came out in 1974, only 2 years earlier. The sounds during the closing credits were just so jarring and unsettling. But now imagine that throughout the entire movie. And for some reason, I was also thinking about Eli Roth. Like, I think Eli Roth should have remade Tombs of the Blind Dead. He made Cabin Fever and then Hostel and Hostel 2, and then he jumped the shark with, I forget what it's called, Green Inferno, I think? Do I have a copy of it? But anyway, whatever it was a tribute to the Italian cannibal movies, like Cannibal Holocaust and Mountain of the Cannibal God and Cannibal Ferox. Yeah, it's like real edgelord stuff. So clearly Roth wanted to be that guy and push the envelope. And I find this ironic because he was palling around with Tarantino at the time, and they had made Inglourious Basterds together, but Tarantino didn't try and repeat Pulp Fiction or top it. His next film was Jackie Brown, which is a slower, milder, relaxed hangout movie, and it was an intentional move. Your filmography should be like a mixtape. It's not all the same tempo, and you can't keep trying to top yourself. You're going to have to cool off a little and give yourself somewhere to go.
You got to kick it off with a killer to grab attention. Then you got to take it up a notch. But you don't want to blow your wad, so then you got to cool it off a notch. There are a lot of rules.
Yeah, see, that's how I wanted to sound like, but I think I'm more like this.
That's my school thought. Grab them and like take them to this other place and then really take them to a higher plateau. Fuck, man, sound new age.
Anyway, I think Roth would have done better to cool off a little, and he could have resurrected the Templars. Now, the last thing I should point out about the first movie is one of its alternative titles, Revenge from Planet Ape. It was just such a genius, or ingenious, marketing ploy to connect it to the Planet of the Apes franchise. And I almost buy it. Like, the apes of those movies do wear clothes that looks like clothing from medieval times, and I guess I kind of like the idea of zombie apes coming back from their graves to... I don't know. Once I get to the zombie apes, I don't think I would need a plot. All right, now we get to 1973, the next year, with Return of the Blind Dead, aka Return of Evil Dead, aka Mark of the Devil 5, Night of the Blind Terror. And yes, the first film was also marketed in some areas as a Mark of the Devil sequel. Mark of the Devil was a video nasty made in Germany, and numerous movies were turned into illegitimate sequels over the years. The literal translation of the German title is Witches Tortured Until They Bleed. So you can see how the thematic material overlaps just a smidge. So the first film ends with the Templars boarding a train as if they were now unleashed on the city. And although the second movie doesn't continue from there, the concept does feel like it's opened up the Templars in the city, as opposed to the ruins out in the countryside, in the same way that Dawn of the Dead broadened the scope of Night of the Living Dead. So it's the Templars now versus the whole town. It's also the start of featuring a disabled character, Murdo, who the village children throw rocks at and curb stomp horribly. It's really messed up and weird inclusion. The scope is larger, now being the whole town, car chases with Templars on horseback chasing them, and these funny interactions with the mayor who thinks they're drunk every time they call to alert him of the impending danger and how they're being killed.
What do you mean, dead people on horses? You mean you called me in the middle of the night to tell me some stupid fairy tale?
No, it's the truth, Governor. Just believe me. They're on their way into Buzzano now.
Your humor's rather tiring, especially now, at this hour.
Not a keen man of intellect and unfaltering intuition, unfortunately. Now, they're holding some kind of celebration in the town, and the Templars are rising to punish them. It's a solid premise for a horror movie. Bad things should go away, but they won't. Whoops, everyone's dead. 1974, The Ghost Galleon, aka The Blind Dead 3, aka Horror of the Zombies, aka The Ship of Zombies, aka Ghost Ship of the Swimming Corpses, aka Ghost Ship of the Blind Dead. So reinventing himself, Osorio puts his next entry in the Blind Dead series out at sea. As part of a publicity stunt, a wealthy CEO has a couple models out in the ocean in some bizarre attempt to create a news story out of two models lost on a boat in the ocean. It's a really strange idea, but who cares when it's how we're gonna get our ghost ship. Anyway, her roommate comes looking for her, so the publicist and agent kidnap her so they won't go to the police, and I'm pretty sure they grape her as well. And meanwhile, the two girls in their little boat encounter the Ghost Galleon, and one by one go aboard, and then the CEO and company decide to go looking for them, and so we see how our seafaring Templars are going to get their kill quota. We even get our obligatory exposition scene in case you were wondering how they got on a boat in the first place.
Perhaps friends of the Templars who were excommunicated by the Pope and banished for the celebrations of Satan.
That would place it in 18th century. But this galleon is from the 16th century.
Yes. Brilliant observation, my dear, but the book goes on to say, these sectarians, with their sacrifices to appease the forces of evil, succeeded in dominating mortality. So they embarked 2 centuries afterward.
I've heard enough. Bad ghouls and boogeymen.
Now wait, there's more.
Sadly, we don't get better production values, so spoilers, the ship burns at the end and the effect is less than exemplary. Now, despite the model of the ship being a little sad and the Blind Dead themselves looking a bit stiff like rod puppets, I think the entire transferal of the setting to the boat shows the versatility of the zombie Templar as a horror movie monster. You can put them anywhere and then just cut to them in slow motion looking so badass. Now, Ghost Galleon is the only of the original 4 films not to feature a flashback sequence to the Templar sacrifice or their own grisly demise.
Now wait, there's more.
They take the girls away, and they never return. The pretty girls, when they die, they become the seagulls that scream and cry.
1974, Night of the Seagulls, aka Don't Go Out at Night, aka Night of the Death Cult. A doctor and his wife come to a seaside town where they are met by rude locals and find themselves in the path of the Blind Templars. The soundtrack for this one is extremely atmospheric with these trilling sounds, the seagulls, I guess, and the reverberating horse clop sound effects are totally overbearing. If I was being flattering, I would say it's psychedelic, but if I'm being honest, they get pretty annoying. Grating and psychologically damaging is one thing, but this is Halloween 3 Seasons of the Witch Silver Shamrock levels of burning into your brain. This movie is shades of Wicker Man crossed with a bit of Cthulhu, or at least borrowing from the Innsmouth idea of a seaside town worshipping great old monsters of the ocean.
What's that?
A beast of the sea. Must be a god belonging to some unknown culture.
There's just something about the balance of the 4 films that are so intrinsically the same, parts of a whole or a series, but also that each has such a unique quality that they're each distinct and separate, and this strengthens the pop culture bona fides, right? 4 films is more than most movies get. It's more films than many directors get to make in their careers. But those pop culture bona fides I was talking about come more from the legacy of the films. And now we're going to look at the movies that came after de Osorio's quadrilogy. So 1974, The Devil's Cross, aka La Cruz del Diablo. Directed by Hammer Horror alum John Gilling and written by Paul Naschy, this Spanish B-movie actually snuck out right before Night of the Seagulls, and it also features undead Knights Templar in the film. Now, I had to read the synopsis online for the story because I didn't get any English subtitles on my copy, but I loved reading the plot and reading that the main character was a hashish smoking writer who has dreams of undead Templar knights and doesn't know if it's just the hash. That's pretty great. Now, the film has never had a North American release to my knowledge and was considered lost for a long time. It's pretty dull overall, but more important to us is the knights themselves, and they are pretty shoddy and uninspiring, unfortunately. It doesn't have the jangling scores of the Osorio films or the great crusty Templars either, and the action is sparse. And worst of all for me, I saw Paul Naschy's name and assumed that I had this movie on DVD, and I kept on watching Curse of the Devil from 1973 over and over again, trying to figure out how this werewolf movie was similar to the Blind Dead films before I figured out these are totally different movies and I'm an idiot. Naschy also had a nightmare with this film as his producing partner stole it out from underneath him. He rewrote it and then had someone else direct it. Although, considering the final product, I don't think he missed out on much. The last 15 minutes are the best as we get an Aragorn-esque fight where our hash-smoking writer fights a handful of them off all at once. (1982) Mansion of the Living Dead, directed by Jess Franco. Another flag bearer of de Osorio's Blind Dead movies, as proclaimed by its director Jess Franco, is Mansion of the Living Dead. Jess Franco is the B-movie director of Spain, and I'm not sure that really explains Franco's work. Jess Franco films are exploitation films with next to no budget and usually pandering towards the erotic, salacious side of cinema. And even that doesn't really give you a sense of how strange or bizarre his movies are. I almost want to call him the Stanley Kubrick of 70s Euro erotica, but that's probably over-flattering to Osorio and an insult to Kubrick. I just want to get across that unlike many B-movies, Franco B-movies are intriguing on levels beyond the budget limitations and the nudity. There's an uneasy feeling in many of his movies, and Mansion of the Living Dead is no exception. In this movie, a quartet of girls, having taken their vacation together, end up at this seemingly abandoned or empty resort. There's one really Norman Bates-type creepy concierge on hand to not be very helpful. There's always a sense that they're being watched, and the absence of any other people is really eerie. And because this is a Franco film, there's plenty of nudity, including a woman that's chained up in one of the hotel rooms, who I assume that they're going to sacrifice to the Templars. This feels like it's going to be a slasher film, but it ends up being like an undead Templar Knights movie, and the Templars themselves are the most underwhelming. Honestly, it's getting a little sad at this point. Maybe it's just like a cult in Templar-type robes who paint their faces. I don't know. So these 4 waitresses seem to have been lured out here for sacrifice, and within minutes they're sleeping with each other and prowling for men. So it's ironic that their deaths will also be while having sex in a cult grape session before being stabbed to death naked. And it's all fairly graphic and exploitation to the max in the 70s. Lena Romay, who is Franco's eventual wife and partner of 40 years, and is in many of his films, spends the majority of the runtime naked and walks around the empty hotel naked in heels. It's not a perfect movie, but it does have that weird off-kilter vibe, and if the Templars had been better, this would have been better remembered, I think. Still as cheesy exploitation fodder, but just better remembered. Alright, 2015, Island of the Blind Dead trailer. So here we have a fan-made trailer, and although it isn't filmed in Spain, it is filmed in Corfu in Greece, so much of the aesthetic architecture of churches and buildings is similar enough to get by. There's no plot to speak of, but the imagery comes across, and it also opens with recognition that this is an intentional fan film meant to add to the legacy of the Blind Dead. So considered. (2018) Curse of the Blind Dead. Here we have a very low budget but loving tribute to the Blind Dead films. It's a decent effort, but it doesn't escape the medium it was created on, and so using digital fire or establishing shots that look matted together do betray that aesthetic. It would have been cool to see it done by a director like Ty West. His House of the Devil is such a great example of how a modern horror movie can be paced and graded to look like an actual 70s film. This movie is interesting because after our obligatory opening flashback scene to evil Templars being blinded for doing human sacrifices, we then jump ahead to a post-apocalyptic world. So this feels like somebody wanted to make The Walking Blind Dead or like The Road or Book of Eli. It's like of that ilk. And I appreciate the thought, but I'm not sure they needed to be post-apocalyptic. It feels like an odd crossover of genres that have zero reason to do so. Maybe if the execution had been a little better, but hey, maybe the weirdness of this crossbreed is what'll make it stand out in time. Although, I don't know, it seems unlikely. 2021, Scream of the Blind Dead. So based on characters created by Armando de Osorio, this full moon production is 40 minutes, not particularly cinematic, and very much a home video footage kind of quality. There's little to no dialogue and way too much scenery and walking. Like, if you feel the need to pad out your story to 40 minutes, then maybe you need to go back and write a bit more of a script. Or shorten it and make like a 20-minute movie. Although this very much has the feeling of making it up as they go along. Most of the runtime is just following this girl around as she walks. It's like watching somebody else play a video game where nothing happens. There is some nudity, so A for effort there. Once we get our blind knight about halfway through, that helps a bit. But there's only one knight, and he really does look like he's blind and can't see in the costume. And it filmed in Canada. You know, for whatever that's worth, I guess. Anyway, that's the list. If you haven't seen any of these films, but you think you might give them a shot, start with the first Blind Dead. It's recommended by Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm sorry. Does it not look like Marjorie Taylor Greene, though? Like, I feel like it does. She's real scared that they're coming for her. I hope they get her. So if you're going to start with any of these movies, start with the first one, and if that tickles your fancy, then try those 4 movies and maybe Mansion of the Living Dead afterwards. The rest, I don't know, buyer beware. So give me the likes, give me the follow, please, please. Appreciate your time. Leave a comment. Come back in 7 days for another video, and have a great week.
Legend has it, almost 3,000 years ago, a simian civilization of super-intelligent apes struggled with man to gain control of this planet. In the end, man conquered ape after a brutal battle, which saw him destroy the ape, his culture and society. After this battle, man tortured and killed all the ape prisoners by piercing their eyes with a red-hot poker. One of the prisoners, who was also the leader of the apes, vowed they would return from the dead to avenge man's brutality at a point in time before man destroyed Earth himself. That time is now.